This is probably one of the weirdest series I've ever seen before in my life. While the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics aren't separated hugely by talent, like some people may say the Boston Celtics are a little bit better, I still feel like they're still pretty close talent-wise. But each game, it seems like these teams can't make necessary adjustments to make it a close one. Almost every single game has been a blowout, except for Game 3. And in that game, you missed Jimmy Butler in the second half, and the Miami Heat still pulled away. So we're going to talk about how weird the series is and why it's been so bad. Now, when I say that this series is bad, I'm not talking about like talent-wise, but when conference finals comes around, these games shouldn't be this many blowouts. It should definitely be at least a little bit close between both teams. And each game, maybe one or two can be a blowout, but majority of the series should be pretty tight-knit, and games shouldn't be decided by over 10 points multiple times. But that's seriously been the outcome of this series. It's not like one team supremely dominated the other. Both teams seem each game to make adjustments to the other one, and then the other team seems to can't adjust mid-game to actually make it a close game. Each team seems to just take turns blowing each other out. At the start of the series, the Boston Celtics were up 8 points at halftime in game 1. They came out, looked like they were the better team, but the third quarter came and the Miami Heat adjusted to another level. Jimmy Butler had 10 free throws in the third quarter. The Miami Heat scored 39 points, the Boston Celtics 14, and while the Boston Celtics were missing Al Horford and Marcus Smart, the Miami Heat were also missing Kyle Lowry, their floor general. Jimmy Butler had a next level third quarter, and to be honest, that was it for the game. The next quarter, the Boston Celtics may have won it by 6, and they won every quarter except for the third. I don't know why that's a consolation prize, but that third quarter was another level of dominance for the Miami Heat, and the Heat won that game by 11. Now you expect the Boston Celtics to come out game 2 and adjust they did. Now game 2 was a whole different story. The Boston Celtics came out and was punching the Miami Heat in the mouth left and right. And it's not like the Miami Heat had a huge free throw disparity, shot disparity, rebound disparity. The Boston Celtics had 8 more assists. They were passing the ball better. There wasn't a huge turnover difference. The Boston Celtics just looked like the better team. And at halftime, the score was 45. And the Boston Celtics really didn't look back after that. And even though the Miami tried to make some runs here and there, they tied both quarters after the halftime mark. It still wasn't enough, and they ended up losing by 25 points. The Boston Celtics really put their stamp on that game and came out and recovered from an atrocious performance in game 1 in that second half. And then in game 2, the Miami Heat, again, in those press conferences, said they got flat out embarrassed and they need more production from Bam Adebayo. They were getting Kyle Lowry back. The team just looked like they were a little bit more juiced. And going into Boston, that first half, they were destroying the Boston Celtics. They were up 26 at one point in the first half and ended the first half up 15. Now, after that, Jimmy Butler does go down, and him being the primary defender for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown had a next level third quarter, even though he turned the ball over a lot. He scored 25 points in the second half, was 10 for 13, 3 of 6 from 3, from being 0 of 3 in the first half. But he did have 6 turnovers, and that was the Boston Celtics' eventual downfall. And even though they outscored the Miami Heat by 9 points in the second half, it simply wasn't enough. And Bam Adebayo put his stamp on that game. But it's also there to note that the Boston Celtics were without Robert Williams, and even though the Miami Heat were without Jimmy Butler in the second half, Bam Adebayo took advantage of Robert Williams being at the game and had his best game of the series. And that's also another factor that leads to these up and down performances. Bam Adebayo seems to just choose and pick and win when he decides to show up. Tyler Hero hasn't showed up almost this entire series except for the first half of game 1. And Kyle Lowry has been a great floor general, but he really hasn't given us the shooting that we need. And Victor Oladipo, while this game he had a masterclass defensive performance, again, he didn't give us the offense production that we needed, and that changed in game 4. But because in the second half, after almost everything went their way, Jimmy Butler being out, Jaylen Brown going on an absolute tear against defenders that really couldn't stay in front of him other than Victor Oladipo, after a horrific injury for Marcus Smart that he bounced back from looking like Paul Pierce. Jason Tatum had a horrific injury, came back even though he didn't play well. The team had a lot of galvanizing efforts, but they still couldn't take the game. But they let the Miami Heat know that was not going to happen in game 4 because they came out in the first quarter with an 11-29 lead. The Miami Heat missed their first 14 shots, and overall the Boston Celtics looked like the entirely better team. Jason Tatum had another bounce back game, shooting 8 for 16 from the field, but it's also to note that the Boston Celtics didn't play well this game. They shot 40% from the field, 23% from three. The Miami Heat, on the other side of things, shot 38% from three, but they shot 33% from the field, and not a single starter scored above 10 points. And Max Strus and PJ Tucker were offers, having 0. Max Strus had 0 across the board, along with 3 personal fouls. The only good offensive production they got out of this game was from Victor Oladipo and Caleb Martin and Duncan Robinson. And even then, from Duncan, it was a little bit too late. And while the Miami Heat did win the last 2 quarters, the deficit that they did gain in the first half simply wasn't enough to bring them back in this game. And that's been the story of the series. Each team punching the other one in the mouth after losing the last game and having bounce back performances. So right now, going back to the Miami Heat's home court, you may see the Miami Heat have another bounce back game and blow this Boston Celtics team out the water if that's been the way the series has been going. I mean, the Miami Heat starters, none of them played well, so you can expect Jimmy Butler to look better. You expect Bam Adebayo to look a bit better because the game before he was an absolute monster. But the moment Robert Williams comes back, he doesn't seem like he's that interested to be a scorer. And while I think he can be, he just didn't look as confident as he did in the previous game. Overall, these two teams just seem to be taking turns trading blows. Jason Tatum been having good games to bad games all over the place. Jaylen Brown has also been inconsistent because after the last game having 40, he only had 12 this game. And overall, nobody shot well on this team, or at least that well. Derek White was 4 for 14. Jason Tatum was 1 for 7 from 3, even though he's 8 for 16 from the field. Jaylen Brown was 5 for 20. It just seems like a back and forth performance. And while the Golden State Warriors are destroying the Dallas Mavericks in the other side of the conference, that's just a difference in talent. These two teams is not that case. They're both very talented, and this should be a close series. And I don't know why these games are just consistent blowouts. But let me know how you feel this series is going to go. I know a lot of people have the Boston Celtics winning the series, but I again have the Miami Heat winning the series. Both teams have imposed their will and shown that if they do play their game right, they both can win games. So it's going to take both of these teams playing to their strengths in a single game for this to be close. And on the Miami's home court, I definitely expect them to galvanize and probably take that game. Then going back to Boston, I expect the Celtics to take that game, and this will be decided in a game 7. And overall, I do think the series will probably be close after this. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. With that being said, this is Fab B. That's my time, and I'm out.